Top Gun. I remember playing it as a child, and I'm pretty sure I got frustrated as much back then as I did now. I'll admit that I'd never seen the movie Top Gun, but from what I've read, it isn't anything like the game. But since I've never watched it, I can't agree or disagree. But this is the premise. You get to fly an F-14 through 4 missions. That's right, you only get 4 missions. You'd think it'd be easy enough, but the game is anything but easy. In fact, it makes Alex Kidd in Miracle World look like a freaking cakewalk. The first thing you notice when playing the game is the HUD takes up half the screen. You have a radar, which serves a decent purpose of telling you the positions of the enemy. The altitude and speed is literally useless for the most part, unless you're landing the plane or refueling. The left side also shows your fuel meter, which doesn't play a huge part in the game. On the right you see your missile count and missile type. At the beginning of each mission, you actually get to choose which missile to bring. Basically, the higher quantity means the less power you get. I usually opted for the T-22s, as you get 20 of them, and they can take down most enemies with one blast. Also, the other thing you'll notice is that you can't pause the game at all. Oddly enough, the select button isn't used at all, but yet there's still no pause. What the hell? Also, the game has a few opening scenes and takeoff scenes. These can't be skipped. If you attempt to play this game a lot like I did, you will be seeing these scenes quite a bit. Let me touch on the missions first, and then we'll move on from there. The first mission begins, and it just simply tells you training for the next mission. So by the sounds of it, you'd assume that you can't fail the beginning stage. Boy, you can't be further from the truth. Even if you can fly the plane well, most people on their first attempt will fail miserably at landing. That's right, you need to land the plane. This is a cause for a lot of anger for a lot of gamers that have ever played this game, but I'll talk more about that when I get there. But I'll say this, you need to make sure that you don't lose any lives in the training stage, or you may as well just reset the game and start over. And for the record, there's no ground units in the first mission, it's just enemy planes flying at and behind you. You're just flying above the clouds. And my question is, if this is a training mission, then why the hell are the enemy planes trying to shoot you down? The second mission requires you to destroy an enemy aircraft carrier. First, you need to travel there. You take off automatically, and then you need to avoid cannon fire and missiles. You can shoot down most planes with one shot, but ground targets require 2 or more cannon shots to defeat. You also need to make sure that the targets are in range. If they're too far away, they can fire at you, but you can't fire at them. Also, firing at them with your cannon makes you a much easier target for their own cannon fire. It's actually best to fire your missiles at the ground targets to take them out. You do have a limited amount of missiles though, so it's best to save them on the second half of the mission, but expend them on the first half. You may ask why you use them and then save them up. Well, I'll tell you real quick. Halfway through each mission, every one but the first that is, you need to refuel. Refueling not only tops off your fuel tank, but it also replenishes your missile supply. The missiles are your absolute best way of taking down the bosses, which is why I recommend saving them on the second half of the mission. However, I must warn you that if you fail to correctly hook up to the refueling aircraft, it'll fly away. That'll leave you with an empty tank, and it'll cost you a life sooner or later. You'll need to refuel to complete the mission. I think if you die with less than 5 bars of fuel though, it'll be refueled to 5 when you restart, but I could be wrong on that. Okay, back to the mission. My recommendation is to try to stay higher than the ground targets. The planes are easy enough to take down and avoid their fire. If they fire a missile, it's a simple shot away from destruction. Now it's thankful you can blow up the missiles with your cannon, but you need to make sure that you hit, or else it will just swerve at you and hit you. You can take 4 cannon shots before dying, but only 1 missile will put you out of commission. The reason why I recommend staying high and avoiding the ground, some ground targets, in this case battleships and submarines, and some other target I have no idea what it is, will fire 3 missiles at you instead of 1. If you think destroying 1 is difficult, you're fucked. 1 will typically veer off course, but the other 2 will track onto you. Apparently every enemy missile in this game is a heat-seeking rocket. You can opt to try to get out of the way, but sometimes when it looks like it's about to go off screen, it will suddenly curve at you and strike before you can either counter-dodge or fire at it. It's just plain frustrating to deal with, and it's the most common cause of death in the game. Eventually you do get to the objective, which in this case is the aircraft carrier. It's simple enough. It will fire cannon shots at you and also fire 2 missiles, typically 1 up and 1 down. I usually fired my own missiles, 1 up and destroyed the enemy rocket on top, and then on the way down repeated it. The target objectives have life bars, which are shown on the top right of the screen. Once that's done though, the mission's over and you get to land. This reminds me though, are there 2 aircraft carriers that you're working out of? I mean, you take off of one, you destroy the objective, and then suddenly there's a second one immediately after? What the hell are they doing in enemy territory? And why couldn't I have just taken off from the other one? It would have shortened the game, sure, but it would have made the mission a hell of a lot easier. The third mission is to destroy an enemy base. This one seems easier than the second mission, but I usually only have 1 or 2 lives left, so I'm usually killed by enemy rockets before I got to the objective. I did once manage to destroy it, but my recording program wasn't working correctly, so I couldn't record it. but it's nearly identical to the second mission, except for the fact that it has a larger life meter. Also, during the mission, the ground targets look pretty lame. The towers look pathetic, and there's other unknown objects firing at you. The sprites are so small that you can't tell what it is that's attacking you. Many times, though, your cannon won't even hit it because it seems like the targets are too small and out of range. I didn't get far into the fourth mission, and I've only gone into it once. You have to blow up a space shuttle. I have no idea why. I didn't get that far in it either, but I've read about the ending, and although I won't spoil it for you, all I can say is it's nothing to write home about. The only thing I've noticed that were different in this stage is that the sky is purple, then dark blue when you change to sea fighting. The enemy planes seem to be trying a bit more flashy moves to attack you, but it's really nothing more than cosmetic. That's about it for the missions, so I suppose we'll just get into the landing now. Basically, as your F-14 is trying to land, you'll see a few things on your HUD: your speed, altitude, and directions. The ideal landing environment is a speed of 288 and an altitude of 200. You can get it about 30 points in either direction before it tells you to change it. The only other thing you need to do is make sure the plane is lined up correctly. Too far right or left, and the plane misses the aircraft carrier and crashes into the ocean. Too high, and you'll overshoot it and crash. If you go too low, you'll just crash into the ocean anyway. Whatever happened to circling around and trying again? It's not like you don't have enough gas. Most of the time, you'll have at least half a tank left. If you do manage to land, you'll get treated to a first-person view of the landing, with a completely bare surface. Where the hell's the crew at? I mentioned the difficulty a bit, so let me explain why it's so hard. For one, the plane can only take one missile. That's fine and all, but the sporadicness of the missiles doesn't give you a fair chance, especially when they're going in one direction, then suddenly a gust of wind whips it back on course for you. Adding 2 other rockets from other enemies, and you're going to hope they all just go harmlessly off course. Enemies can lock onto you, and although this happens rarely, thankfully it's easy to shake off. Just go from one end of the screen to the other and you'll be fine. The biggest problem is that you only get 3 lives to start with, and only 1 chance to get an extra life. That's by getting 50,000 points, which typically happens near the end of mission 2. That is, if you can make it that far. Also, if you fail to land the plane, you lose a life. So even if you complete the game by killing the space shuttle, if you have no lives left and can't land worth a shit, you're fucked. So what's the best way of playing? If you don't want to die, just avoid every enemy possible so that as soon as the rockets are fired, they're forced off screen. But what's the fun of that? If you're playing a game where you're flying an F-14 through enemy territory with things firing at you, of course you want to fire back. It's natural. You shoot when being shot at. But if you can't finish the game because you need to avoid everything, what's the friggin' point? You're not flying a stealth bomber. This isn't Metal Gear Dogfight. Alright, finally, one more thing I need to touch on, and then I swear I'll get to the good things about the game. The graphics are just plain awful. They're so mundane that it's not even worth looking at. When I start falling asleep because the graphics suck so badly and there's no action on the screen, you know it's a bad game. The sky is the same color. Yeah, that's fine. But why is there no texture in the water? Hell, even I can deal with that. But apparently Mission 3 is just a barren desert. There's distant mountains in the background, I think, but they never get any closer. Also, there's no sort of objects that don't fire at you on the ground. Apparently the enemy forces found the most desolate places on Earth and decided to camp there. It's all one huge open fucking road. And why am I getting killed? Because I'm too drowsy to see the rockets because there's no friggin' scenery to look at. I mean, look at this! Also, the sound effects are way too generic. The background music isn't bad, but besides the missile selection screen and the main game music, it's repetitive as hell. The flying music repeats throughout all 4 missions. It doesn't change at all. The music cuts out when refueling and landing, but then all you hear is the whirring of the plane. Okay, I promised I'd touch on the good stuff of the game, so here we go. The controls are easy to learn. When refueling the plane or landing, you use A to speed up and B to decrease the speed. Up pitches the nose downward and makes you go down, whereas the down button makes you go up. Left and right go in their respective directions. When dogfighting, A fires your normal cannon and B allows you to fire the missile. The first B press locks onto a target, and a subsequent one fires. If you lock onto the wrong target, you need to disengage by moving out of range. The lock will then disappear. Sometimes it's easier just to fire a missile and then lock onto the right target. That's the control scheme. It's nice and simple. That's it. Yep. That's all I can say that's good about this game. And yes, I'm dead serious about that. Top Gun was Konami's venture into a flight simulation game, but its problems just make it way too frustrating to play and enjoy. I tried at least 20 times or more to get into the final stage, but I only succeeded once and gave up trying before I broke my controller, so I never even got to the final boss. Which, honestly, that's fine by me. I just wasn't enjoying this game at all. My final score? 4 out of 10. Yeah, we're going down to a 4. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.